Production, I think, and that's fine. If you guys need to go other directions, I will. But we'll talk a little bit about marketing and processing if we have time to do that. But so my wife and I are both first-generation farmers. We didn't come in this with a farm or with a background in farming. I grew up in rural Arkansas. Got a college degree in physics. My wife has a degree in biology, and we just we wanted to live in rural Arkansas. Tough to get a job there. We were trying to figure out what we want to do, and we'd always thought farming would be an interesting thing to do. And so after stumbling Joel Salatin and Michael Pollan, we thought, well, this would be a great way to make a living, create some jobs in our community. And our goal was to get a demonstration farm, not just a economically viable farm, but also a demonstration farm for other farms to help them learn how to do it if we could succeed. Right, and so definitely our goal was to be a triple bottom line farm that valued the right kind of production techniques and that made money, and also was socially responsible in that we worked to help educate other farmers and treated employees well and that kind of stuff. Just that Airstream photo there. We started out on 40 acres and we leased. We outgrew that, couldn't find anything around there, and so we ended up getting a lease on about 200 acres, about 30 minutes away from our house. It was very difficult to farm, living that far away from our home. I always encourage people to be as close to the farm, especially when it has livestock on it, if possible. And so we lived in the Airstream, bought the Airstream, put that on the place, and lived in that for several years, a ways away from the owner's house, until recently the owners have moved out. We don't own the farm, we still lease it, but another buyer came in who was actually an investor in our farm and made an investment in bought the property for us to lease. Land ownership, as I talked about last night, has been kind of a theme in this conference for beginning farmers, is a huge issue, especially livestock production, because livestock production is very capital intensive, very land intensive. It's always a big issue, but I encourage everyone to stay away from buying land as long as possible and to use your money to invest in growing your business. So anyway, this is a little picture of our farm here. It's kind of blurry, but we have, this is about half of our farm, there's another half behind it. We have a lot of small pastures, 10-acre pastures. We've subdivided that far, little pasture. It's about 40 acres of pasture. We've subdivided it into 5 smaller pastures for our cattle. One theme you see on our farm, we mimicked a lot of this at the Polyface farm, Salatin's farm, but everything is constantly on the move. The chickens are moving, the cattle are moving, the pigs are moving every day. And so any given day, we'll use maybe 4 or 5% of our farm. And then they're moved on to another area, and that area is left to rest for maybe a whole year, maybe 6 months, maybe 2 months, depending on what's going on there. We farm on about 200 acres, like I said. We raise cattle. We do pasture raised broiler chickens. We used to do laying hens. We've cut back on that. It's hard to make money in that area, but it's a great, if you're at a farmer's market, it's a great loss leader. It's sort of the gateway product, I think, in the meat for a lot of people. We do pigs and turkeys. So again, just on the move, these are our chicken pens that we built for our pasture chickens. This is sort of like generation 2. All those are moved by hand. We have a water system that connects all of those. It's very labor intensive. We'll have 40 of these going at once. We'll do about 15,000 chickens this year. We have moved on. I'll show you our new scaled version for production, but this is a very low cost, low risk way to get into chicken farming without having to go out and take a loan and buy something else bigger. We don't use the Salatin style pen because of the heat in the summer. We went with a hoop style, so that keeps the heat off of the birds a little bit better. And we actually have misters attached to those pens that help. Will mist during the hot time. People down here, especially, it's cooler up where we live in the Ozarks, but You gotta definitely, when you have chickens in the summertime, you always have to be conscious of how hot it is outside.
How many chickens per hoop?
So it's about a chicken per 2 square feet. So those are 10 by 12, the same footprint, Southland style. And we'll put about 60 chickens in there. So to build one of those, if you don't include labor, it's about $150 to $200 to build one of those. You can, around your farm, if you're just getting started, you can scrap some stuff together. I mean, it doesn't have to be, we use billboard tarps, but we actually ended up, because we were doing so many of them, we just went ahead and ordered billboard tarps that were used from a company and paid more for them, but we knew it was an ease of getting them to us. And so in the beginning, you can build one of those maybe for nothing. If you don't count your labor, but around your farm, you can have some stuff to experiment with.
Is it like you pull it with a rope or something?
Yeah, there are ropes in the front with a dolly that goes on the back.
Okay.
You just pull it forward. It's actually not too bad to do. You want to make sure it's tougher, obviously, if you're pulling uphill.
Yeah.
Tougher if you've got really tall grass. But when the grass is, the perfect size for chickens to eat, then they're really easy to deal with. You just run a dolly. We have a little dolly that goes in behind you. One dolly you'll take down through and do all those pins. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to move and service each pin. And so I always encourage people to, everyone's always looking for an alternative to this style. It's more scaled up, and we've actually gotten there now. But in the beginning, it looks like it's super inefficient, but when you get going and you calculate it out, 3 or 4 minutes a day, I think we ended up figuring out we have about, I think it's like 6 minutes per chicken in production by the end of a growing cycle. So it's not that big of a deal
And you
compared
raised
to.
it for like 6 months?
No, 2 months.
2?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Another beauty of the broiler is that they're real quick cash flow, which
Yeah.
is great. We process on farm too, and by far we have more minutes per bird. We have like 9 or 10 minutes per bird on processing versus the production is much less time per bird. So this is we're not raising the style of chicken anymore, but you can get a sense. We used to raise the Cornish cross. We've changed a little bit to a different bird. We experiment with all kinds, but this bird it works pretty well. It has, these aren't designed for pasture, and so they're designed to grow really quickly. And when you think that they can convert 2 pounds of grain to 1 pound of meat, there's no animal more efficient maybe than like tilapia or something, but they're very efficient, which is, it makes economic sense, but there are some ethical issues to wrestle with there. But we ended up, going with this for several years, and it did pretty well. When they grow out, you'll get a 4 and a 4.5 pound bird in 8 weeks with these. Go ahead. I'll show you our new bird here. This is our brooder setup. This is where they start. These are actually turkeys, not chickens here, but we start them out in very confined rings for the first week of their lives. It's a little bit more labor intensive, but by far the most important thing in poultry production is getting the brooding right. Without the right brooding, any problem you have on pasture is related, usually like 90% of them are related to brooding. And so we're very, very serious about our brooding techniques and want to make sure you keep the shavings dry, keep the fresh air in the room. They always need to have feed. They always need to have water. Fresh shavings every day or twice a day, depending on what's going on. And so you can't. It's a stage where you can stunt your growth. You can wipe out your profits by letting your birds get coccidiosis or whatever other diseases they can get in the brooder, and they don't die immediately in the brooder. They'll just die out on pasture or have a lower feed conversion rate. Those things play a big role in making money trying to do this. And that's something that's, I think that producing the birds, there are a few things you need to get right to make money doing it, and that's one of them is getting the brooder right. Go ahead. So this is the second stage of the brooder. First week over there, second stage here. Again, these are turkeys. They go from about 100 birds, about a quarter square foot per bird in that first brooder, that ring, to a square foot per bird in this setup. And they're in here for usually 3 weeks. If it's really cold outside, say we're starting birds in March, then we might push them to 4 weeks if, depending on the weather. And so you really want to make sure you you have enough space to be able to let them, to let them harden off in there, basically. There is heat in here. We just slowly decrease the heat over time. A bird, when it's a day old, needs to be 95 degrees, needs to have access to 95-degree temperatures. After that, it gets less and less and less to where they can handle, at this age, 3 weeks they can handle 60 to 55 degrees outside.
Is your heat coming from lights?
No, we actually use, we do use some lights to supplement in the smaller rings, and we do that actually in our shop. We have a shop that we went ahead and just took a piece of it and put our rings in there, keep it more insulated so we have less temperature fluctuation.
Mm-hmm.
And here we use propane hoods. And so
Uh-huh.
propane. And every day, twice a day, we go in, inspect shavings. Shavings are going in every morning to make sure that the bedding is clean and dry.
Do you purchase the shavings? Or-
Yeah, we do. We've tried making them. We're going through so many birds right now. It's just, we'll spend a couple $1,000s on shavings. Now, the beauty is the shavings end up being compost for us.
Right.
So we process on farm right now. That compost, the viscera from processing is composted with this, and so we have a huge compost pile. It's very nice. Again, so on the move, general theme, our turkeys are raised in similar style pens to chickens, but they are actually ranged. Once they get to a certain age, we let them out, let them range inside that netting. It's an electrified netting, and they get moved. Their pens get moved every day, and then every 3 or so days, we'll move that netting to a new area. The turkeys and the chickens both get quite a bit of forage out of the pasture. I've read that turkeys can get close to 30% of their diet out of the pasture if it's the right kind of pasture. And so, they're much more aggressive foragers than chickens are. Chickens get around 15%. Just another picture of the turkeys ranging out there.
Do you have a problem with pregnancy?
Yeah, I do. And I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. We've had problems in the past.
Okay.
Yeah. Once they're that big, so the turkeys at night, they get put back into their pens. We live in a pretty rural area, and so we don't leave them out overnight. We herd them back in at night, which they kind of get the routine down. It doesn't take 4 or 5 minutes to do it. We'll do 400 turkeys this year, and so yeah, they go back in at night.
Do you have like several operations of 50 turkeys?
No, we have them all 400 together.
Okay.
Yeah, we do one batch of turkeys a year right now.
Uh-huh.
The broilers we'll do in batches of, this year it was batches of 1,200, and so we just kind of stagger those every couple of weeks. And that's one key is getting you want to have the right number of pens, and you're trying to scale up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And having your pens match your batch sizes, and have your brooders match your, you have a big enough brooder to do to max pack your pens, and
Yeah.
you see where that can get backed up there. We have a lot. I've seen a lot of farmers who end up they have a market and they have some pens built, and they intend on building more pens, and their brooder is maybe the appropriate size for their batches. They start adding on too many batches. Next thing you know, they're having to pile up birds in their brooder, taking them 5 weeks in there before they get them out on pasture. And what happens in that scenario is you end up usually with poor brooder management, and you end up losing money doing that.
And then so there's a 400 bird tractor pen or something in the
Right now, actually, so right now we have 10 or 11 pens out there.
Okay.
And then we'll put a certain number, 40 to 50 in each one.
Okay.
And they only really go in there at night anyway. So
Right.
when they're young, it's not crowded at all. When they get older, this age, they're getting pretty crowded in there.
Okay.
And we'll take 3 of those nettings. So this is a blurry picture here, but it illustrates sort of our pork production methods. Same thing. We are moving these guys around all the time, every week, and we range our hogs in the forest. We have of our farm, about 50% of it is wooded and 50% is pasture. And so we only put hogs in the forest. We move them weekly, and we use electric fence to manage them. To be able to move all of these animals as frequently as we do, you have to have a sufficient amount of electric fencing. You have to have the right water system. Those are the things you have to be able to make this work.
Yeah, I just have a question about that.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that over time that the hogs don't I establish the forest.
Yeah, it's through movement. I mean, basically, it's just like beef or chicken or overgrazing is you're looking for there. You want to manage it, and it's all about a rest period. Our pigs, if they'll beat around the edge of an area, but they don't do as much in the middle, and they're moved. They're in like 4 or 5 acre lots, and we do go in and reseed afterwards with ryegrass. But they're moved so frequently that you don't have like bare, a whole bare forest. They do end up cleaning up a lot of the underbrush. They'll defoliate different, plants and they'll eat you get a lot of acorns and hickory nuts and muscadines and pawpaws, and they'll eat a lot of things out of the woods too.
How many hogs do you have in the 4 to 5 acres?
So we'll have around 100 to 125 hogs in that area for 7 days.
And do you supplement food?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We use a GMO-free ration. We also have, I'll show you a picture, drinking whey too. We supplement whey. You just know the picture. That's actually a mule-foot hog that you mentioned in that talk earlier. And this is a hog. We actually don't use them anymore. They're a super fatty hog, but just in the picture,
What are you using?
they're really fatty, and we sell a lot of pork to restaurants. And I found that most of our restaurants they don't want to pay for fat; they want to pay for meat. So you'll end up with pork loin that has 5 inches of back fat on it, and they're paying the same amount per pound. And so now some chefs love it, but the most of them do not.
Do you farrow to finish, or do you buy?
So we buy them piglets. My father-in-law does the farrowing for the big chunk of our pork production. Right now we're actually using majority of a red wattle Berkshire cross, and I like that cross a lot. Then we have a neighbor that does more farrowing for us. So we'll do about 250 hogs this year, and we direct market everything. I'm not sure I've said that, but we do.
Right to restaurants.
To restaurants, individuals, we do a little bit, we stopped doing it now, but we did a lot of farmers markets in the beginning. This is so the back side of our place here, we have, basically there's 240 acres there, and that donut up top of that 40 is ours. This back here is not. But I just want to show, like, this area over here where it's real steep, you can kind of see that maybe in the picture, but we don't run anything in there. We run the hogs in these areas that are that forest there, that forest over there, there's a forest up top there, you can see. And so I think that when you're thinking about figuring out what kind of production you want to do, you look at your land and resources and see what you have, have access to. What would be good for? If you only have forests, then you're not going to be doing much pasture poultry production, but you could do hog production. And so we found a way to use every inch of our property that's usable with our production techniques, trying to max it out. Because our goal one day is to be able to buy the farm.
That changed over time. Like you started adapting what you produce based on.
Yeah, well, yeah, we started out with broilers, and then we moved to, added some turkeys, and then we went to, added a few cattle. This is our first place. We had 40 acres there, and then we added a couple of pigs, and we just sort of maxed the place out, and it was time. We needed more to make a living farming. Our goal is to make a living farmer. My wife and I both are full-time farmers, and so to do that, we had to scale up more, and so we needed more land. And this place was available to lease, and ended up trying just to figure out what we do, how many cattle can we do, how many chickens can we do, and trying to maximize the use of that land. This is a picture of the spring of our pigs. When they come through, there was no grass in this forest at all before the pigs came through there. And we came in, they go in, they hit it, and we come back and we seed it with ryegrass. We get amazing stands of ryegrass, and it's beautiful, really beautiful. And so it's done the right way. Oh, yeah. Done the right way, you can really improve your wooded areas, and you can actually come in there with cattle and graze that afterwards.
I was going to say, how do you decide when you're expanding what species to move to, whether you go from chickens to turkeys, chickens to hogs,
Yeah.
chickens to beef, or?
Yeah, well, we're just trying to feel out, we've hit max production on poultry and beef at our place right now. If we lease more land, we could do beef or something, if we could find it, but do more beef, and we'll harvest about 40 head next year. And so we have 43 or 45 million cows going right now. But it's all about just figuring out your capacity on your land, and then also your market. There's a lot of factors: market demand, seeing what's out there, what your, so things like that. We started in 2007, and so we moved to this farm in 2010. So not about eight years, I guess. These are the pigs eating away. They love this stuff. There's a cheesemaker in Little Rock that sends us 500 gallons away every week or 2 weeks, and they just go crazy for it. They really like it. And just a way to offset feed costs. We pay $100 to get 500 gallons brought up, and it's the way is free, just the hauling the guy charges for it. So it's really I haven't noticed a difference in flavor really, but they do seem to be a little bit healthier because of it. I mean, it's a very healthy product for them to be eating. Oh yeah, that's a heck of pigs. One thing, we do run pigs in the woods in the winter time. You have to be very careful in the winter time. We use a lot of hay for bedding. That's the time you could really have a lot of erosion problems. And so we're actually looking at potentially doing a little bit more, using a barn and keeping some of the smaller pigs, like that pig right there is it's probably a 125 pound, 150 pound pig. Keeping it until it's a little bit bigger during the winter time in deep bedding, and then having a smaller herd of the bigger hogs out in the forest finishing.
And you have to bring those hogs. All the hogs you have to bring in.
Yeah, so these hogs, they herd really well once you get them trained to electric fencing. We actually, just a couple days ago, moved our hogs almost, I'd say, not quite a mile, maybe a mile, to one of their forest areas, from the one that's up front in the farm to one that's in the back of the farm. And so you just, you withdraw feed for a day or so, and then they'll follow you wherever you want them to go. As long as you have fencing, in the right places. We want to kind of make a lane for them to do that. We have a lane that runs down the middle of the farm. It's fenced pretty well, and so we can work off of that.
So how long is like the hog cycle, like from like piglet to?
It's about 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah, give or take, yeah.
You harvest them in the spring?
We harvest year round.
Okay.
So, we also do beef production, like I said. Again, the same concept. They're constantly on the move. These are South Poles. These are full-blood South Poles. We started out with just buying stockers and finishing them by yearlings, or buying just weaned calves. We finished those. Now we have a cow-calf operation too. Yeah, we got a good deal on a herd, and cattle prices are up really high right now, and so we actually got into the market in 2012 during the drought, so prices are down a little bit. Yeah, and there is, so we do high stock density grazing. We try to make really serious impact on the pastures certain times of the year, and have long rest periods. It's very difficult to do that when you just have stockers. If you just have stockers, then you're constantly, you want them to have more of a free choice, right? You want them to have a little bit bigger area and not to be making the impact, the same kind of impact. So we let our stockers, we'll have 10 or so pigs at a time out front in what's called a leader-follower type setup. And so they're out front moving ahead of paddocks. They have bigger areas, and the bigger herd comes in behind.
Yeah, how do you decide which is the leader and which is the follower?
One's out front's the leader.
Well, I know that like is like the Striping Grass Farmer that we got a copy of. There's an article about this in there about leading and following, and whether the poor ones are in front or the mamas are in front.
Yes, well, you would do that. So if the ones you want to gain the most, you put up front.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to finish stockers, and then you put them out front. If you're trying to get a mama cow who's drawn down a little bit, get her back up to weight, you put her out front too.
So the front is where the people who are sick or you want to gain most.
Yeah, you have a much smaller herd out front. Or we do.
It's smaller.
Yeah, much smaller. It's
Yeah.
like maybe it's 10 or 15 animals.
Gotcha.
And they have the same. So what we're doing, we're moving our cattle. You can go ahead. So again, always in the move. We have a road that goes through the middle of our property, or not the middle, but part of it. And we have to go across the road with cattle.
When you move them, do you walk with them or do you drive four-wheelers at night?
So we have we have a bunch of paddocks that are, I'd say average from 5 to 10 to 15 acres. And we go in with electric fencing and subdivide it. Right? And we'll have quarter-acre pastures. And we'll put the whole herd, at one point this year, the herd was about 90,000 pounds on a quarter acre for about a quarter of a day. And so it's real intense in a real short period of time. And the way you move them is, once they get the routine, and now they all have the routine, you just reel down, they'll hear the fence clicking, like the reel clicking as you roll. And you're basically going out there and giving them a candy bar every time you go out there. So they know, they get the routine, they're ready to go. They're ready to move. And so there's not much effort moving most of the time to get out of the way. So, yeah. And so now there are days when you have to move them a further distance or whatever reason they don't want to move. And you just get in behind them and push them. But they're, we'll go in, they're in about 12 acres there, I think. 12 acre, bigger pasture, subdivided, a bunch. And then we'll go in and it's just, they're so close, they're not moving far at all. So, here's the fence right here, here's sort of a before and after. We're trying to, it's a, grass, grazing cattle there's an art to it. There's certainly science to it, there's also an art to it too. Getting the right impact and not too much impact that you don't want to jeopardize the health of the animal. And so balancing out the impact on the pastures, not grazing it too low, leaving enough extra for if you want this mat of grass to end up becoming fodder for the microorganisms to eat and turn into soil. And so there's a real art to that. I don't claim to figure it out. We range. So in the springtime, the general theme is they're moving real fast and have much bigger paddocks. When the grass is just starting off growing and has a lot of water in it. And over time, as the grass dries out, it becomes more mature, we come in and get it, get more and more dense over the course of the year. So we do end up feeding hay for 2 to 3 months of the year. And I'm hoping to get out of that at some point. We don't have enough pasture, given the size of the herd we have to be able to do that at this point.
What type of fencing?
We use just a electric fence, like a,
Is it like polywire or is it actual?
well, the polywire for subdividing and the high tensile for around the pastures. So the cows we just bought a commercial herd of cattle from a farmer down the road from us. They're sort of a Brangus, they're a bit of a mutt crew, but they were older mama cows. It was our first time getting into the cattle business, or cow-calf business. So we wanted some cows that we knew could handle, probably new old heifers to start out with. And so, but we did end up buying a grass genetic bull. It's a South Pole bull there. And he came from, the South Pole was a breed that's out of Alabama, created by the country singer Penny Gentry, about 20 or 30 years old. It's a four-way composite, and they're really good at handling the heat, and they've been bred to do well on grass and grass only. They have big barrel chests. They're really short compared.
What kind of cow?
That bull is a South Pole.
South Pole.
Yeah, so it's a four-way cross. It has a Hereford and a Barzana on one side. The Barzana is it's a rare, more hardy breed, and the Hereford was from an older herd of Herefords with a smaller frame. On the other side, it's a Senecal cross with a Red Angus. And so they're really nice. I believe he's a really nice bull. The focus of that breed is heat tolerance, grass genetics, and or heat tolerance really, and breed longevity for the mama cows. And he's found that all of that is linked to doing well on grass and marbling well and tenderness. And I really like the quality of the meat coming out of the South Pole. That's him again. They're kind of a funny looking bull compared to a lot of bulls. I mean, he looks funny there because of the way the picture was taken, but they're really, really short.
They don't have horns?
They're pole, South Pole. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
This is an early spring shot here. We do, I think that trying to make a living farming, trying to buy a farm someday, we certainly think a lot about what we call stacking. You don't want to just have a pasture that just does chickens and nothing else. There's a lot of symbiosis that can take place between, our broilers fertilize the pasture for our cattle and help us get more grass production. The pigs end up rooting up the ground. We can go in, we can put down some grass seed and have grass in the woods for the cattle to munch on. And so just trying to grow as much as we can per acre while staying true to our values of the right kind of production. And so it's it's a kind of a dance there. Just a real quick thing here. I talked about fencing and water supply. We started out just using city water and a bunch of black poly pipe. We did, through an NRCS project, or several, put in a bunch of fencing. This whole lane here is fenced, and it goes across the road there, fencing all over the place there. And then we put in a water system. We had this pond built here, and gravity flows at the backside of the pond to an AC pump right there. It's pumped all the way. It's about 1,000-foot distance from there all the way to the top of this hill right here. It's about a 150-foot rise there. And then they have a 1,500-gallon tank, and the water flows out of that, gravity feeds down the hill here and goes out to the all these pastures over here, back over here to this pasture and these pastures, and then off the backside here to the pigs over here. So we have water all over the place. It's made life a lot easier for us. You want to have, you got to have enough water to be able to water your animals. We ran into problems where we didn't have enough volume coming out of a 3/4 inch pipe to be able to water our cattle and our chickens on a hot day and our pigs, and it was just a nightmare. And so having that size appropriately now where it's never even an issue. We never even think about it. It's a big help. So.
Do you just pump that water on like normal power?
Yeah, it's an AC pump right there. We put a power pole in right there,
Okay.
and then just it's a solar pump would not give us the volume we needed up there. It would give us the biggest we could get. I think that was going to work was maybe a gallon a day or something. Or no, gallon an hour. No, gallon a minute. Sorry, gallon a minute.
Okay.
And then we have a pump.
That's not enough.
Yeah, no, 30 gallons a minute up there. I just want to make sure we do have a solar pump across the road here that I really don't even use anymore because of this whole system here actually goes across the road. Just the solar pump. I'm not saying people can figure it out and make it work for them for sure.
Yeah.
It just this has been zero headache, and the solar pump has been a lot more. The batteries go down or whatever
I
happens.
just wondered.
They're not as cost effective for the amount of pumping you have to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I love the concept. I absolutely do.
It's a lot of
Energy
money.
and all that. It's just that I haven't quite found a way to make that particular part work for us.
What size of line you running? 2 inch?
It's 2 inch going up the hill and then coming down. Coming down is actually 2 inch too, and then it splits and goes into 1/4. And so, plenty of water.
I can't even wait. Is that the Mississippi?
No, it's in Arkansas. It's in north central Arkansas, the Ozarks. This is I want to talk a little bit about risk management. There's a lot of things that you need to get right to be able to be successful at farming. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you're not just the kind of farming we're doing. We're essentially a vertically integrated company where we're doing everything from the processing of the chicken to developing the customer base, customer service, all of our own accounting and all that, and then taking things to the butcher and raising the animals and putting them in freezer storage, and you do everything. And so you want to get as much right as possible. One of the biggest problems we've had, especially related to poultry production, is sourcing chicks. And chicks through the mail are terrible. We've had a terrible time with getting chicks through the mail. And last year we were able to find the hatchery that was in Arkansas that ended up working with us. They're actually a larger integrator company that's raising chickens or hatching chicks for us. But that has been a huge impact for us. It's been a huge impact for us.
Is that Spencer?
No, Spence is.
It's a special bird in Arkansas.
Yeah, it's a special
Can't
bird.
get unless you're in Arkansas.
That's right. Yeah, they won't ship it to you, but it's a bird that. I think it's less about the bird and more about not shipping them through the mail. Finding a way to get them as close as possible. If you have to, you have to. But that's something that I would. I think it's better to get if you have a choice between having some sort of special, really awesome bird that somehow some great bird that someone ships to you from Ohio versus getting just a standard Cornish cross, an hour and a half away. I'd go get that Cornish cross an hour and a half away. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and just say that you live kind of far from a big
3 hours.
post office, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that too, yeah.
you know, if you're really close to a metropolitan post office, you're probably not gonna have as many problems.
Right.
But it's when it's 100 degrees outside that you're gonna open the box and not be happy.
Birds are cooked, they come to be cooked.
Do you ever mix birds?
What's that?
Do you ever mix birds?
Like,
Like chicken breeds?
like in a pen, you mean, or?
Yeah, or just like in general, like.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, it'd be fine to do it. We don't usually have different kinds of, like I wouldn't put turkeys and chickens together. And we don't do any breeding, if that's what you're asking too. But I don't think you have a problem mixing. The only thing I worry about is the color. Birds are, funny things. They have a tendency to, if something's different, they'll pick on the one that's different. So, we're using a naked neck chicken that, it's a heat tolerant chicken that is really, again, having the right genetics, whether it's cattle or pigs or whatever, given your climate where you are, your terrain, you want to find animals that fit. I think it's better to go out and buy if you're living in Mississippi here, where it gets hot down here for sure, you don't want to go out and buy a bunch of, what are those very furry cattle. I'm not saying you can't do it, but those, what's called? Yeah, Scottish Highland. I'm not opposed to them. They're just, those things have evolved to live in Antarctica or something. Scotland, yeah, Scotland. And so bringing them down here is pretty cruel. So we do have predator problems here. I know we're getting close to the end, but we had some wild hogs. By far been our worst predator. Other predators you can deal with in different ways. We've had to go to livestock guarding dogs to fend off the wild hogs. They've done an amazing job of it. They're their own thing to manage, but ours have been really. They don't kill chickens anymore.
They used to.
Yeah, other than pups, they didn't know what they were doing. Now they know the rules and they do a pretty good job of doing it.
We have
maybe school buses.
So
Yeah. Anyway, so I think it's important to always have a whatever can happen is going to happen usually. And so there's a lot of things. There's a lot of risk involved in farming.
Do they stay with the flock all the time?
We started them out like that, and now they kind of range out more. We'll end up if we have a skunk attack or some sort of small animal attack somewhere where the dogs weren't out there that night, and they were.
So most of the stuff happens just like around here at night.
We'll take almost always. We'll take a dog out there and we'll feed them around where that pen that got hit or where they were. So one of the worst predators you can ever have. Hogs are terrible and they'll come at night usually, but it's just dogs. If you have wild, feral dogs around, those things go in. They don't even eat the chickens usually. They're chew toys, and they'll just kill every single one of them. Not eat any of them, and they'll take your whole pen out. Do we need to quit now?
Well, not as far as we're concerned.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. This is the best part of it. Okay. Well, sorry it was short, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll be here today, and
Do you have more?
I have more. We have to go. It's time to the next session.
No.
Show them the video.
Video.
Of
Oh yeah. Well, this is worse. All right. So I talked about scalability and blah blah blah. You want to scale up. At some point, you develop your markets, and you want to make a living farming. You got to find ways to scale. You always got to be careful about scaling. That one you saw a little bit ago about cash is king. You want to keep as much cash, liquid money, cash that you have in your bank account or in your pocket as possible, because you're always, don't go buy a tractor if you can help it, because you want to use that money to buy more feed to raise more chickens, so someday you can actually pay yourself something. The same thing with scaling up, but you got to do it at some point. And so we've actually moved to a mobile greenhouse setup that this thing's moved daily. We actually move with the tractor right now. We're going to move to a different way. I'll show you here in a second of moving. We have a farmer, a friend of ours. It's in our cooperative that found developed an innovative way to move them. But this thing is moved every day. 500 chickens in one of these things. They're 20 by 40. It's been a real nice evolution.
What's your source of non-GMO food? Is it in Arkansas or you have
This comes from Missouri. So this is a pretty cool setup here. This is one of those pens being moved. It's actually one person can do it. he's inside with a remote control and has a winch. Has a winch set up, a self-anchoring winch where he can use that remote control and just stand in the back and make sure no chickens get hit and can do that. Yeah, it's awesome. It's pretty cool. So,
And that-
anyway,
and the-
just don't buy a tractor, you can help it.
And the price point on that winch is much lower than the tractor.
Yeah, $1,000. So for less than that, you just buy a really nice winch.
And servicing that entire thing takes about 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, versus, you know, if you had the same number of pins, you're talking about 30 or 40 minutes, 30 minutes a day.
How much feed do you have? I mean, what,
15 pounds.
no, no,
Chicken.
but I'm saying for your chickens, I mean, what is your cost per chicken to raise a chicken? I mean, is it?
So your cost of goods, like your feed cost? So your
Yeah.
feed cost, we estimate roughly, it's
Yeah.
around 15 pounds of chicken to get them up to a week or to a 4 to 4 pound bird average.
So yours are ready to slaughter in 8 weeks?
Yeah, 8 to 9, usually 8. Depends on, if you have good brooder, if you have good brooder skill, you know, a good brooder set up and you do that well, then you get.
What do you think per pound?
It's 30 cents, roughly 30 cents a pound, so we're not doing our costing. So it's about $4.50 a chicken and feed, $4.50 a chicken and feed, and anywhere, depending on what your chick cost is, you add that in, that's your cost of goods.
And where did you get your feed? If you-
It's a place called Highland Mills.
Okay.
No, sorry. That was previous. It's a place, Hostella Feeds. It's a Mennonite feed mill in Missouri. That's Missouri.
But
Oh, they ship? So you have to go pick it up?
They actually, so we get semi-loads, and they bring it to us.
Can you send me that again?
Yeah, it's Hostella Feeds.
How many pounds do you
They're in Buffalo, Missouri.
estimate for turkeys?
Turkeys, they're around 75 pounds. Turkeys, you got a lot of money in a turkey. That's why you want to put them up at night.
Okay.
You know, $5.
What?
Anything else?
One thing, if you're looking about the feed can be really hard when you're getting into it, and like nobody would tell me in my market in Nashville, Tennessee, where they were getting organic or non-GMO feed because they didn't want any competition. One of the things you can do is look for Mennonite and Amish communities. I found a group of Mennonites who were with the Organic Valley Cooperative doing dairy, right? And so Organic Valley's cash flowing all their organic grain, and they just let me buy from them, right? I go and get a ton at a time, and that is how, you know, if you're looking to try to find that, that's a good option. Like look for groups that are already doing it that probably aren't on your radar otherwise, and they just will let you buy it usually.
Just my advice has always been try to find a mill that will do a custom ration for you. I don't think it has to be. I would not go crazy over GMO free or organic. I know unless just it's something you want to. Just the most important thing to do. I would say start off finding a custom ration. That's a good first place to start. So just talk to a feed mill,
Right.
and then work your way to GMO if you can get there, or just at some point you have to be able to move forward and not pay 60 cents a pound for feed. If you're paying that, and it's really hard to charge $20 or $25 for a whole chicken in the South. In San Francisco, you can do it, not here.
All right, we really have to go. We want to thank Cody Hopkins for spending time with us and giving us